Welcome to my channel. My name is Crafty Kathy. I am the owner and creator of Kids Vintage Farmhouse here in beautiful Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I am so happy and thankful that you stopped in to craft and spend a little time with me today. I've put together this compilation video that has all summer DIYs, and they are cottage themed and some of them are French country themed. But I think you're going to love them. There is a lot of inspiration in this video. And also there was a few clips where I left my sweet little Sabby and Penny Pio in there. That's our two little sweeties that we lost last year. But I left them in there because I know that you guys like to watch them just as much as I do. It makes me sad for a moment, but it also makes me happy because both of them had really good lives. But anyways, I'm not going to yak anymore. Let's jump into this video. Sometimes to upcycle your old decor, it doesn't take much. It might just need a spray painting, which was the case with this old rusty, crusty bird cage. It's a mint color, which doesn't go with anything of mine. So I gave it 3 coats of the satin beige by Rust-Oleum 2 times. It came out looking great, but I wanted one that had the bird on the top, and I had a bird that I got from Dollar General for $1, and I painted it white, and I just used some E6000 and glued that baby right to the top of my bird cage. So next I take this 3x5 frame, and I already like it the way it is. I just want to tone down the color a little. So I'm taking my Debbie's DIY white wax and a chippy brush, and I'm going to go over the whole frame with a pretty good thick coat. Then once I have it covered in the white wax, all I'm going to do is just take a microfiber rag, and I'm just going to go and lightly buff off some of that white wax. This definitely did the trick to tone it down just a little bit and make it a little bit more shabby. I took a piece out of one of my journals that's called God's Whisper. If your life is too noisy, you're drowning out God's voice. And I really like that reminder. I like the look of ripped pages, so I went all the way around that and ripped it, and then I just put it right back in its frame. I styled my bird cage by taking an old vintage key and tying it to some shabby ribbon on the side, and then I also added a couple of flowers, some ivy, and I put my beautiful little quote and picture frame on the top of some old books, and I absolutely love it. You know, sometimes I think I overthink my DIYs. I'm going to keep this one. It has special meaning. If you'll look on that vintage key, it says heart. And then I purposely locked that cage. And this is kind of like a little reminder for me that we allow so much noise to get our attention in our daily lives that we don't hear God's whisper. But if you'll just take the key to your heart and unlock it, it's like you're opening your cage and setting yourself free. I know that's kind of out there, but sometimes I do that, and I have little analogies for my DIYs. Is that weird? I don't know, but let's move on. The next one is this pretty little basket that I got from the thrift store. Well, it's a basket, but it's also like a little container, like a little box almost. It's got a lock on it, and I think it's really, really pretty. And it also had handles on it, which I had already taken off. They were basically kind of like thick jute cord, or jute rope, I'm sorry. And so what I'm going to do is give it a couple of coats of my Rust-Oleum white spray paint, and I always use the 2 times Rust-Oleum. But if I'm going to be spray painting a basket, I always go over it with a top coat first, because these baskets tend to soak up that spray paint. But if you put a top coat on it, it's like it gives it a barrier, and it gives something for that spray paint to stick to. So anything that has trouble with spray paint sticking to it, you just put this top coat on it and you're set to go. I'm going to use the Prima Redesign Transfer, and these are called Vintage Dream, or this certain one is called Vintage Dream. I absolutely love the flowers in this one. And you know, you can cut them apart. You don't have to use the whole picture the way it is. And I thought at first, it's just going to go right through these holes. It's not going to be seen. And I don't know if I've ever even noticed anybody put transfers on a basket like this. But I was in a little bit of a daring mood. So I thought, well, let's try it. The worst thing that can happen is I lose my transfer. So I went over it, and all you do is lay it down and just use your little scraping tool. And I just really took my time with it. This is in super fast motion, just so I don't bore you guys. But I really just took my time, was slow about it. And a lot of times when you get your transfer stuck on there, you can start to pick it up and it just like automatically lays down. It's almost like a sticker, but you just have to make sure that it sticks really good. So I put the big flower on the left side, and then on the right side, I put the two smaller flowers and going up the top. And once you find the placement where your transfer is going to go, it's not a good idea to try to pick it back up and move it, because parts of it probably will stick and you are totally going to mess up your transfer. But I got this one flower down on the bottom, and then I put the other one kind of toward the top. Once you get your transfer totally on the object, you use the backing of that same sheet and just burnish it. And that just means rub it around, basically, so it'll stick down really good. And this is what I came up with, and I just used some jute cord for the handles. I hope you like this one. I'm really glad now that I took the chance on trying this. I wanted to jump in for a minute and ask you guys to subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you as part of my family here on YouTube. All you got to do is hit that little red button and you're in. And give me a big thumbs up, because it really helps support my channel out here on YouTube. Let's go on to our third DIY. I'm going to start out with this big size tin can that like a big size that green beans come in. You just take everything off of it, and I spray painted it smoky beige by, you guessed it, Rust-Oleum 2 times. And I'm just putting 2 pieces of wax on the side so it doesn't move. We're going to do a little decopauging, which is one of my favorite things. You just get a little bit of your Mod Podge on your fingers together, and then you go, like I did there, like pinch the napkin, and it will cause that back side to come off. Now, but most napkins have 2 backings on them, but make sure it's all off of there or it will mess up your decopauge. And I'm just going to rip the part of the napkin off that I want, because I do not like straight edges on anything that I'm doing with decopauge. It doesn't look as good as it does when you have ripped edges. So you just rip off the piece that you want. And if you're afraid of it ripping, do like I just did. I squirted the end of my paintbrush and you dab it where you want it to be ripped, and it creates just a little bit of wetness, and it's so much easier to rip. Now, I sped this up for the sake of time, but you just go real slow. You put your Mod Podge down in sections and just very gently lay it down. You don't want to touch it with your hands after it's laid down. I mean, if you need to move stuff around just a little bit, you can, but be very careful, because the napkins are so thin, they're going to, mess up on you if you're not careful. Now, your best friend is your saran wrap. I always say that. So I put it down, and you see I put my saran wrap over the front of this. I got enough to cover the whole scene there, and I just kind of used my fingers to kind of push the image down into the object and to pull. And when I pulled, that napkin went right into all those little ridges, and it turned out without a single wrinkle. And if you need to touch it, use your saran wrap to do so, and set it aside and let it dry. Now I'm going to do a couple of projects together because it creates a vignette. And here I'm going to do a candle. I actually do 2, but I'm just going to show you one for the sake of time. I've got my wet paintbrush, and I'm going down through the side of this, and I just kind of flipped it off, and see the whole, it's all like jagged, not jagged, I don't know the word, but I didn't, it's not a straight edge. It's ripped. Okay, I'm using antique Mod Podge, but there was really no difference in this Mod Podge than others, and Plaid sent it to me for free. Thank you, Plaid. So I'm going to try it out. It's just kind of a more antique-y color, I guess you could say, but I didn't notice anything else different. So here I'm putting my Mod Podge down in sections. I want my bird's face, or the front of the bird, to be the very center of that candle. So I lay it down, and I just once I lay it down, I just kind of let it fall as it may. And I start off in the middle, and I go down and up to try to get that image to fall down naturally, and that's where it's going to stick. I hope that kind of makes sense. And then, of course, I grab my handy-dandy saran wrap, and I lay it on the top of it, and then I use my fingers to put this exactly the way that I want it. And I'm so sorry that my doggone hair bow keeps getting in the way, but I'm using this new arm that goes over my head, and I thought it was totally over my head. But you're getting a good view of my Minnie Mouse hair bow. It's not really. It just looks like something she would wear. And so anyways, you just make sure that you use your fingers on top of that saran wrap. And hey, even if you do get a wrinkle, you can almost like iron it out with your fingers. The heat from your fingers on top of that saran wrap, run it back and forth like you're ironing that wrinkle out. And I promise you, for the most part, the wrinkle will come out. But guys, if you take your time and you do your saran wrap and you just slow down and get you some practice, hey, you will get this. It's not difficult. It's not a difficult concept, but it takes a lot of patience and practice, and that's something that most of us lack, especially me. It took me forever to understand that saran wrap is my best friend. And if you have edges that are sticking up that need to come off like this here, just use sandpaper or like this little wedge like I am, and you do it away from yourself and it comes off perfect. Okay, next I've got these 2 candlesticks. I got these at a thrift store, y'all, for $2 a piece because the lady didn't know how expensive these were. And I kept telling her, but she wouldn't listen. They are 52 bucks a piece, and they still have the things on the bottom. These are the heaviest, chunkiest, most beautiful candlesticks, and I've had them for a while, which is why I couldn't bring myself to paint them. But today I did. I used my white Rust-Oleum, and I gave it 2 coats, and then I did the clear coat. And then I'm just using my sanding sponge and very, very lightly going over it because I was even afraid to sand them. Like, these are my favorite candlesticks. I will not sell these in my booth. They stay with me, absolutely. And you can even use your fingernail to make a little scratch if you want to in the paint. Don't do it in the candlestick, just lightly in the paint, and it makes a larger spot and it looks good. And the next thing in my vignette is this little ordeal that I made. It's a riser. Okay, if you guys can help not looking at my chickens because they are so gorgeous. But anyways, I made this riser. These are just 2 of those little rounds that you get from Walmart for 97 cents, and I took the farmhouse beads and put it in the middle of them, and of course I painted it with my antique wax. And on the bottom is this candlestick actually, and it's a reddy brown color that I do not like. Look at my babies. It's so hard not to love them. See, I had to draw a little heart. I know I'm weird, right? So I painted that white, and this is everything together, and I hope you like it. I think it's glorious. I wanted to mention that these are battery-powered candles that I put that napkin on. I'd be afraid to put it on a real one almost because, I mean, who's wanting to burn their house down, right? And as I was going through my stuff, hey, I come across this box that's Rose Forever. They sent me these roses about a year ago. And I just, out of curiosity, thought I'm going to look and see if they're the same because they say that the roses will never fade or lose their smell. And when I opened the box, I was like, wow, because the color is just breathtaking and they smelled so good. And I just wanted to show you guys because, I mean, it was just strange. I was just going through my stuff and I was like, ooh, I wonder what these are going to look like now. And I just wanted to show these off to you. I think they're so beautiful. But anyways, I contacted the company and let them know thank you again for sending me those flowers and how beautiful that they still are. And they said that they're going to send you guys a pretty big coupon. So I'm going to leave that in the description box below. If any of y'all want some of these flowers, just go down in the description box and get them. I can say it's been a year and they still look great. And I love the box that they come in. It's very Frenchy vibe and right up my alley. So anyways, let's get back into the DIYs. I have one more to show you. Now this one is going to be some vintage French books. Now these aren't the cutesy little books that all of us DIYers have made a million times over that have the words. These look like old vintage books where the spines are coming undone, and I just think they're beautiful and they have a French shabby vibe to them. So here I'm just making a gray color. I'm using white and black to get my gray, and then I'm going to add the light blue Glacier from Home Decor to get a blue color. Now that's going to be the main color of our books, but we're going to have several different colors mixed in and mingled in with that. So I'm going to take my books and I want the spine completely covered in the light blue color. But the rest of it you do just almost like a very thick distressing. Now if you have any other color besides a blue, dark blue or light blue, you need to cover it up totally. So you see what I'm doing here, it's just a very thick distressing motion. And then I'm going to go over the pages also. If you have any other color besides blue and white, you want to cover it up completely, just like this red here. You want to make sure you've got it completely covered, and you're going to go down the spine of the book too, or I'm sorry, the pages of the book. Now on the spines, we are going to make it look old and vintage. And I use DOS brand clay, D-A-S. It's in my Amazon store if you want some. And all you're going to do is warm it up in your hands. And then you're going to go over it and you're going to cover the whole spine up with this. And you don't want it to be even. You want it to be kind of... it's easier for you just to watch what I'm doing than me to explain because it may not make sense unless you see what I'm doing here. You can use a little spatula if you need to kind of smooth it over, but you want it to be bumpy and rough looking because when you're finished, it's going to look like old ripped spine from a book. And if you need to use just a little bit of water so you can smooth your clay, that's perfectly fine. You just do what you need to do. And I must say, I think it looks better when I covered the whole spine up because on one of the books, I didn't totally cover it up. And the one where it's covered all the way does look better. This is the one that I completely covered, and I have it sped up for the sake of time, but you're going to leave it alone. I usually do overnight so that it can totally dry. Then you're going to take a darker shade of blue, which I picked Nantucket blue, and I just put a dash of blue in it, which it really didn't make that much of a difference. And you're just going to kind of do a distressing motion all over that area that you had distressed with the lighter color. And then you're just going to put dabs of it on the spine, especially in the areas where there is no clay. You want that darker color. I actually think that the one that had the whole spine covered with the clay turned out so much better. So that's just my main suggestion, is to go ahead and cover that whole spine with the clay. You don't want it level. You want it kind of, so it'll look like a shabby old book. So you just go over everything with that dark blue color, and you're just lightly distressing kind of here and there all over that book. Then when all that's dry, you're going to take your lighter color of blue again and just lightly go over everything. Now you pretty much want that whole spine to be covered in the blue, the light blue mostly. And it's okay to have a couple of peaks of that white coming through. That's fine. I saw this off of Flea Market Rescue, and I just thought it was beautiful, and I've been doing it in my booth, and these have been selling like hotcakes. They sell more than the books that have the little words on the side. After I got all of my blue on and I was totally satisfied with it, I took a little bit of the antiquing wax and I just went over it very lightly. I even rubbed it in the spine with my finger in just small areas. I wanted to show you right here on the pages, look how pretty that is when you take the light blue with the dark blue and then go back over it with the light blue. It just looks like an old vintage book where the spines are just falling apart. And the lady from Flea Market Rescue did a much better job than me. But these do sell very well in the booth. And so what I did right here was show my head forever. Sorry. And I'm just basically going to take a thick piece of jute twine, wrap these books together, and then I had made some beautiful little tags for my booth, because that way I like to put tags on all of my things that I sell at my booth, because it's just an extra sweet little gift for the person to tell them thank you for purchasing from me. And this is how it turned out. If you made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I love you guys, and I appreciate every single one of y'all. Don't forget to go see Miss Maria, and don't forget to subscribe and like.
Hey there, everybody. It's Kathy's cousin from Tennessee, Bobby Joe Womble. And I can sing and dance and do anything that Hollywood wants me to do. And guess what? Hollywood called me back and wants to put me on that story called Real Stories. You know, the one that wanted me to act like I was inbred. I don't even understand why they would want me for that part. But anyways, I told them I wasn't going to lie that I'm not inbred, but they told me to sign a bunch of paperwork, which I don't understand what it means, so I signed it because I'm going to Hollywood. But anyways, I've been putting my affairs in order lately. I've been working on my riverfront property. By the way, how do y'all like the specs? I think they make me look a little sophisticated and ready for Hollywood. Mama got them for me at the Dollar General on account of she said I can't see nothing because I married Buford. I don't even know what that means. That woman's crazy. But anyways, I just wanted to stop in and let you know that my movie will be out real soon, and I was discovered right here on this channel because Kathy gave this channel to me, so it's mine. I might give it back to her when I go back to Hollywood because, you know, it's just so small fry stuff. But I love yous, and I'll see yous real soon. Bye.
Girls, why did you push open the door and come in here? Snooping around. You know I don't like you in here because you poop on command. Yeah, you poop in my floor and you don't even warn anybody. I know what you're after. The mealworms tasty trio. It's exactly what you're after, and you know they're in here. All right, come on, let's go. Mama get you some. I just wonder which one of these girls pooped in front of the door. That burns me up. And of course, they're not going to say. They love their mealworms, though. They'll go crazy over them. I have the most tame chickens, I think, of anybody in the world. But they're my sweethearts, and I'm a crazy chicken lady. Can't help myself. That's why I buy them $30 bags of worms. Makes no sense, right? I love y'all. DIY number 1 is this wicker mirror, and it's also got a little basket area in the front. I got it at a thrift store for $5. It's super dirty, so I took it outside. I cleaned it up. I took the mirror off, and I sprayed the outer part, the wicker part, with the 2 times Rust-Oleum, and it took 3 coats of the ultra matte white. And then I took one of my stencils and I covered up the mirror, and we are going to use this Rust-Oleum frosted glass to make something that I've never done before. So the instructions say to spray it 3 times and you wait 2 minutes in between the sprays. It's still tacky when you spray the second and the third coat, and I love the way it came out. It was really cool. And then I had this small piece of a napkin, and I took it down to 1 ply. You know, most napkins have 2 or 3 plies, so you take it off to where it's just that top one. I'm going to use this Mod Podge spray that Plaid sent me. Thank you, Plaid. And to be honest, I did not like this as well as the regular old Mod Podge. It worked well, don't get me wrong, but I still thought that the other kind that you put on with your paintbrush did a little bit better. I was just going to put my napkin on this small part in the very middle to kind of give that wicker a little something to say, hey, look at me, here I am. And I liked it so well, I decided to put the napkin all the way across the front and on those sides. Shame on me. I totally forgot to run the camera when I put the rest of the napkin on, but all I did was just put it on and use this sponge that was barely damp to push it in. And here I'm just going to take one of my IOD stamps, and I'm using archival ink in a green color. And it's the exact same color of the green that goes with my pink flowers there on that napkin. It's pink and green. And I wanted this to kind of look like a label. So I thought, well, let's do it in green. It's going to look really cool. But to be honest with you, it barely showed up. But it's okay because it still turned out great looking. I just wish I would have used black instead of green ink. But tell me what you think about this DIY. I love the way the mirror came out.
You had me at a low, 'cause where you go is where I go. I don't need nobody else. I got you, and you got me too. You came right out of the blue. I wanna do what you want to. We can leave and run away someday, someday.
DIY number 2 is super easy. I got these 2 canisters at the thrift store, of course, and I already took the hardware off of the other one because it had some rust spots. And so I'm taking all the hardware off of both of these. I gave them 3 coats of the Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra Matte White. And then all the hardware, I spray painted it with the black. It's the matte black Rust-Oleum. It came out looking super great. And I am going to use one of these silk screen stencils. It's kind of like the Chalk Couture, but it's just an off-brand from Amazon. And it is in my Amazon card if anybody wants it. It says Walk by Faith. And I'm going to use the Chalk Couture's black ink. And all you do is just go over this. I'm not using a scraper like I normally would because I was too lazy to go in the house and get it. I had just cleaned it the day before. And so I'm using like a little dauber. You know what I mean? The little thing that has the sponge on the end. And I'm just daubing and making sure that I get down inside these words. And it came out super great. Very easy DIY. A quick flip for my booth. I put the hardware back on it and it turned out great. The third DIY is my favorite of all of these. We're going to do a little bit of sublimation because it's been a little bit since we've done it. Look at these 2 beautiful prints that I purchased today, and they will be for sale on sublimated paper in my Etsy store if you want it. All you got to do is purchase that, and it is totally ready for sublimation. You just need like a Cricut press, or you have to have a shirt press, and you pretty much just press it on whatever material you want. I'm actually using an old shirt that belongs to my husband. The more polyester that a material has in it, the better off you are. This was 63% polyester, and it's an old work shirt of his, actually. So when I finally found the part that was big enough that did not have a ton of like stains on it, I put these pictures down. Now, these pictures are normally 8 by 10 each, but I made them smaller into about a 5 by 7 for the project that I'm doing. You lay it down face first, and the image is mirrored. All I'm doing here is putting down my heat protective tape, or heat protected tape, I think you call it. In other words, it's tape that don't get all messed up when you add heat to it. So I'm just putting my tape around it, and then I put my Cricut on it on 385 for 60 seconds. And I want to show you the difference when you actually use the materials that are polyester. Now, I think they want you to use 75% polyester, but like I said, this was 63. But look how vibrant and beautiful this is on an old beat-up work shirt. Look at that. I was so happy. I got these 2 frames from a lady this weekend that had a lot of antiques, and they had been in her garage for quite a while, and they were pretty dirty, so I just gave them a good cleaning up, took them outside, and I sprayed them 3 times with the Rust-Oleum Matte White. And so I brought them back in. Look how beautiful these turned out with the white. And what I did was I just cut those 2 images out, and I wanted them to have really rough looking edges. No pretty edges here. So I basically kind of just gave it a rough cut. I'm not kidding you, a very rough cut. And these are going to be put on the front of these. I just glued it to the front, and I just put very little glue, just enough to hold it. And see how I cut it off? I was just being very nonchalant and just chopping it pretty much. And the reason why I did it this way is because I had a certain look in my mind of what I wanted. I have a bag of old vintage keys that I got off of Amazon. They're not real keys, but I mean they're like replicas of keys. And I put one on top and one on bottom that matched. And then I'm going to add 2 buttons on each one, which here I had already glued the buttons down. You see here it's in the left upper part of that picture of the bird. I like the way it looks when you put one big button with a smaller one on the top. And I get all of the little glue cobwebs off, and I just put a little bit of antique wax and got the excess off. And I'm just going to go around these frames so that you can see all the details of the frame. And I just very lightly went over the image, and I wanted to show you the difference. The one on the right is the one that I did have distressed with the antique wax, and the other one I did not yet. So I went ahead and distressed both of those, and this was really an easy DIY. The thing that took the longest, I think, was just spray painting these frames. You see how easy and quick it is to sublimate, and I didn't go into great detail of how I sublimate. I will put a video in the cards up on the right hand corner in case you want a longer instruction on how to do the sublimation. And those are for sale in my Etsy store at their normal size, the 8x10. Unless you want both of them and you want them smaller like this, and you just need to let me know and I can make them 5x7. No big deal. I got a basket the other day at the thrift store and forgot to show it to you. This is the color that it was before I painted it with my Rust-Oleum 2x white. And I took a drop cloth and I'm going to sublimate a picture. It's the same picture that we used earlier when we made the two little picture frames. It's a bird, and we're just going to simply, quickly sublimate this onto the piece of drop cloth. We put our tape over our picture and our wax paper over that, and then we do 60 seconds on 385. And then I'm also flipping it over to do the back side, because you're actually supposed to do that when you sublimate. A lot of times I skip this step, but I shouldn't, because it makes it more vibrant. And I chose the picture of the bird with the bird cage because I absolutely loved it. I am just cutting and ripping the drop cloth into a very small section, just a little bit bigger than the image, because I'm going to put this on the front of that beautiful white basket. I like to take the strings and kind of fray them because I like that look. After I hot glued my picture down, I started playing with some buttons because I like to put a button on each corner. I just think it kind of elevates the piece a little bit, and you know, it's like once I start a DIY, I can't stop, and I keep adding and adding to it. So I found these beautiful buttons that had flowers on them. They were from Walmart, but I felt like they weren't exactly what I wanted. And so I played around until I found just some smaller black ones, very simple. And I just glued one button in each corner. And I take some antique wax on the end of a brush. I made this little tag yesterday because it had to harden overnight. It's made from my clay, my DAS clay that I get from Amazon. And I just kind of rolled it out a little bit bigger than like a silver dollar. And then I used a stamp that I have to stamp it on there, and I let it alone overnight so that it can harden. And I put that on a lot of my items in my booth. It's just a simple little tag, a little extra gift for the person that's buying it to say thank you. And I'm just going over everything very, very lightly with my antique wax. And I had already put my white wax all over this basket. Even though it's already white, you still have to just make sure that it's got a good seal on it. And I think this turned out beautiful.
What's it like to be the one
have got him on my mind, but he doesn't know my name, and I'm running out of time. I wish you felt the same, and I'm acting.
All right, our very last DIY. Guys, I do not know what possessed me to buy this thing, but the other day I was at the thrift store and I came across about 5 of these. It's a Victorian boot. I don't even know what it is, if it's a vase, if it's a shelf sitter, I don't know, but I grabbed it anyway. It was black and it had some rust spots on it, but I took it outside, and of course the Rust-Oleum 2 times Ultra Matte White saved the day. And I just have a napkin here that has roses, which I felt like it went with the whole Victorian vibe. I've got it down to 1 ply. And when you decopauge something like this, you're going to have wrinkles. There's pretty much no way around it because there's so many spots that go up and down and in different directions. And it's not just a, flat surface, in other words. So you're going to have a little wrinkle. You just don't wear yourself out, and all you do is you just put your pieces on here. And if you have a piece that's bare, or maybe you tore it or whatever, it's okay. It's not a big deal. You just tear a small piece of the napkin off and decopauge that down. I'm using the regular Mod Podge, and this is just a really sped up version, and I'm sorry that I sped it up a little bit, but it was just for the sake of time.
Can't stop thinking about him, and would he understand if I.
So I just went over the whole little boot with my napkin, and all it took was 1 napkin. This week was a tough week for me. I lost my Penny P.O., and those of you who don't know who Penny P.O. is, she was my prized chicken. Hey, I'm a country girl. I love my chickens, and I never did until I got my own flock. And I'm absolutely in love with these guys, and I really missed Penny P.O. It broke my heart, and she was kind of one of the staples here on the channel. I remember back a year ago when I was making DIYs that I would say this is Penny P.O. So instead of the bloopers, I just felt like I was going to have a little memorial to her since she was such a staple on this channel. But I had to show you guys how my boot turned out. I hope you like it. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what to think about this thing. I stuck a flower in it and I don't know. Maybe it's a vase. I don't know. I hope it'll sell. If it won't, I'll have my Victorian boot here at my house. How about that? All right. So if you hung on to this video this far, I just want to thank you, and I love each and every one of y'all.
Of course, I had to bring Savvy because he wanted to say hello. And this is the famous Penny, guys. This is my Penny P.O.
Saw you paint a picture of a face, a face that wasn't even close to mine. I know I shouldn't be in love, but it's so hard to move on. You haven't changed, you stayed the same. But if you did, I'd still love you anyway.
And the girls say hello. There's Penny P.O. She says hello because she's a star now and she stands out. Oh, and my grandson threw something at him. That's him. He's 2. He likes to, he threw foam at them. I don't know why. He thinks they're going to eat it, I guess.
Little chicken baby, what you doing round here today? I see you looking for your mama. What you doing, little girl? Hey, 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 there's my Penny P.O. looking like a queen today. Whoop, 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 whoop.
I still wish you were mine.
Penny, I already told you I don't have any meal.
'Cause I've been up till 6 a.m. Wrote 5 songs all just for you. 3 of them I can't bear listening to. I'd give you the world like I promised I would. Even though you wouldn't do the same. I'd give you the world like I promised I would.
Ian, I've done put your mealworms out. Watch her, she'll pick on the bag. Saying, I want that, Mom. Watch her. That's what I thought. I done put your mealworms out, silly girl. Come on. Come on. Come on, Pen. Come on, Pen. Penny. Mealworm time. Yeah, she's gonna come over here and peck on the door. It's exactly what she's doing.
You can see her shadow move when she pecks.
I'll come out in a minute, Penny. All right, see you then. I'll be out in a minute. I told y'all, she comes and pecks on the door. Don't think I'm lying. She's a nut. Look at her.
If you like flea markets, thrift hauls, antiques, antique booths, you like to DIY, or it's just a pastime, you are in the right spot, my friend. And I welcome you with open arms. We got a lot to cover, so let's do it. So, you know, this is that rooster bell that I got at the antique flea market that I went to. And sometimes it doesn't take much to, you know, get something spruced up and make it look beautiful again. Look at this guy after I took him outside and gave him 2 coats of that Rust-Oleum 2 times in the matte black. And then I also put a clear enamel over it just for some protection because he's going to be outside. And I had cut the bell off, or the rope to the bell, I'm sorry. So I just put a new one on with some jute that I had purchased at Walmart because I just wanted it simple. And that's all I had to do to this guy, and he turned out great. I did burn off the very end of that jute with the lighter just so that it wouldn't kind of fray as much, and I would burn off the little fuzzies that come along with it. Hey, when the chickens hear that bell, they know that it's mealworm time, and they already come a-running. And I stuck it right on a post at the front of my craft studio.
What's it like to be the one that he turns to when he's out of answers? What's it like to be the one that he comes to when he wants to dance?
It's hard for me to call that first one and this second one even DIYs. They're really not. It's just little things that I got from the antique flea market, and I'm doing these for my own home to kind of spruce it up for the summertime. So this is a gorgeous flower pot, and I forgot to take a picture of it before I painted it. But it was gray, and it was all crusty and falling, you know, the paint falling apart. It just looked awful. So I gave it 2 coats of my Rust-Oleum 2 times matte black, and then I'm using a chalk couture stencil. It has a chicken on the top of it, and it says, "Feels like home." That fits me perfectly, doesn't it? But all I wanted on there was just the chicken and the word home. So I did that with my chalk couture, and then I flipped it over and just put simply the chicken on the other side. And that's all I did to this one. It was so super easy. That's why it's so hard to even call it a DIY. And then I stuck some of my succulents in there.
Last month at the thrift store, I found that cute little boy and girl. They're little gardeners, and they had like a little spike on the bottom, and you stick them down in your flower pot. So I just stuck those in there too to give it, you know, a little bit more vibe, because my succulents look pitiful in there by themselves. But anyways, when I first saw those that with a spike on the bottom, I thought they were wine corks. Good grief, I don't know what's wrong with me. Now, look at this that I got. It already had some natural rust on it. Not enough for me. It's an old clock. And when I got to looking at it, I thought, why did I buy this? What am I going to do with this? So, I got a little idea what I want to do with it. So, I flipped it over and I popped the back off of it, and look at that rust on the back. To me, that's beautiful, but why would somebody keep their clock outside? I don't know. Maybe it was just in a basement that had a lot of moisture or something. I don't know, but I took it. I only paid like $1 for it or something, and to me, rust is beautiful. So anyways, I did pop the back off of that eventually, and when I flipped it over and I started poking around and realized that that was paper, and I was like, I really don't want to mess with that. So I believe I'm just going to paint over that part. And I took the little mechanism that makes the clock work out of it. I can always use that for another DIY. And then I just printed out on Google. I pulled up old scale images, which is what this is. It looks like to me that someone just took a picture of an old scale. But it didn't stop me. I just printed it out on regular printer paper, and I got it to the size that I needed to go on the front there. Then I took my ivory chalk paint that is by Home Decor, and I just gave this 2 coats on the front. I didn't want like anything perfect. I'm just trying to cover up that paper where you can see the numbers, because I don't want those bleeding through whenever I put my printable on there. And like I said before, this wasn't enough rust for me, so I just took a really old cheap paintbrush from the Dollar Tree. It's just one of their little, I think they call them stencil brushes, but I don't use them for anything except for junk brushes, because I don't like the way that they paint or anything. All you do to make rust, faux rust, is just put a little Mod Podge down, and then you put cinnamon over the top of it and just kind of sprinkle off the excess. And when the Mod Podge is still wet, one of my favorite ways to do that is to use my finger. And I told you guys, sometimes you just got to get in there with your finger and either to shade stuff out, and in this case, make rust. And you just kind of push it into the Mod Podge, and it makes a rust that is extremely believable. So I just went around to any spots where I wanted extra rust, because you know it had a little bit on there. And then if I wanted to add rust, I did that also in certain spots. And I tried to pay particular attention to places where rust would naturally accumulate anyways, kind of like there along the top where the little piece goes in, and you know, just places where rust would naturally be anyways. And I think it was very believable. And once I started using my finger to kind of blend it in, I just gave up on that paintbrush, because the finger does such a better job. I used my little Elmer's glue stick and went all around the front of that scale, and I just put that little faux face on there. And I didn't use the hands that I had from the clock, because this one already had little hands on it. And before I popped the front back on it, I put a little bit of Mod Podge that had some of that cinnamon on it. I just kind of ran it around, if you can see, just in certain little spots, and very, very lightly on the front of that, just to make it look like it had rust also. I have a pie pan that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I flipped it over and set it on a big piece of wood and just beat a nail down in it 3 times to make 3 holes. And I did add some of that cinnamon to it to make it look believable, make it look like it had rust. And I also purchased a chain that comes out at the Dollar Tree right now when a lot of plants are being hung. And I put that chain into 3 equal parts. I actually counted how many links so that it would be perfectly even. And do you know that the bottom of this clock must have been attached to something, or it had a bottom on it, but it had a hole, and it was so perfect. I had a S hook that I stuck right up into the bottom of that clock. And then I took that chain and just hooked it right onto that S hook. And guys, that's all there was to my faux scale. And I really like the way that it turned out. And it's going to go here at my house, so I wasn't looking for perfection. I was really happy with the outcome, though. Then I took the top part of that chain from the Dollar Tree, and that's what I hung to the very top part of that clock. And it had a little handle up there. It's like it was made for me to make it into a faux scale. So I hope you guys like this.
I'm walking down the street on clouds instead of the concrete I'm dancing through. Everything's about to come my way. Nothing can ruin my day. No matter what anyone does or say, I smile at fools. No, I don't care, cause I am on my way up. And I won't stop, I won't slow down. Steady on my feet, I'm gonna rise up. No, I won't stop, it is my time. Cause I know what it's like to be broke. I know what it's like when nothing goes your way. So I'm gonna let myself enjoy the fruit from this lucky day. Yeah, I am on my way.
Right now seems like the perfect opportunity for me to jump in there and ask you guys to hit that subscribe button and join our happy little family. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like this video. This last one is my very most favorite. I got these 2 bamboo lanterns from the thrift store last week, and I took them outside and I painted them with my Rust-Oleum matte white, and I gave it about 3 coats. And I actually put shellac on it before I painted it because I was afraid of that reddy brown coming through, and it did a little bit. So I just kept hitting it with that spray paint and with that shellac, and they came out beautifully. Now I'm going to work with my molds, and I'm going to use resin, and this is the first time I have ever used resin, guys. I got some from a company called Hippie Crafts, and I'm so glad that they sent me this because it's opened a whole new can of worms. So what you do is you just put, it comes in 2 parts, and you put 1 part of the resin and an equal part of the hardener in. So in essence, you're putting equal parts in. It's 1:1 ratio. And then what I did was mixed them together at that point, and then I just stirred it up really, really good to make sure that that was all, mixed up, because I've heard that if you don't have enough of the hardener, or if you have too little, then it's going to be an issue. So just make sure that you are precise on your measurements. You want if you put 1 cup of one, you want 1 cup of the other. Okay, so I pulled out my Prima Redesign Farmhouse. That's not actually the name of it, but it's got farmhouse stuff on it. It's got a chicken, a cow, a pig, and the word farmhouse. I'm not 100% sure what the name of this mold is, but I will put it in the description box below. So I wanted that chicken and that word farmhouse. And then when I realized that this resin was really cool and it's going to be pretty much an easy way to make a mold, I went nuts. I pulled out every mold that I own, guys. I made all kinds of molds. Now, the only part that would be a downfall, if any, for me, is that you need to wait 24 hours for your mold or your resin to harden enough to use it. And so I did this in the evening. The next morning, whenever I came downstairs to check it out, I was so excited. I had molds galore, and I love to work with my molds, so I had so many different kinds, guys. Check this out. This is my bee, And this one is from IOD. I have all different types of molds. Some of them are from IOD, some of them are Prima Redesign, but they all turned out super, and I could not be happier. I just wanted to show you a little bit of the ones that I've got. I love my birds, and I mean, the detail that comes out on these is extraordinary, guys. I was so happy, and like I said, it's opened up a whole new can of worms. I decided to use the bees. And so what I did was I like my bee stuff to be black except for just a little bit of the yellowish on the bees. And I just went all over and painted this, you know, just very nonchalant. But it did help it show up a lot better for the camera. I understand it is a little difficult to see that it's clear. So I painted everything black except for the bee. I did paint the most of the bee black except for just kind of went over it like a distressing motion with a yellow over his wings. So I'm just going to let the video roll for a minute and you can see me painting the bees yellow and black. And I want to tell you guys what I did last week. Oh my goodness. I was actually in a collaboration with Miss Tammy from the Rusted Willow. And do you guys know that I did my video without even remembering to talk about her in the video and leave her information in the description box? This is the first time I've ever done that. And you know, 9 weeks ago I had COVID, which there's no excuse for it. I'm just a sorry human being. No, not really, but come on guys, I cannot believe I did this. And I was even like, I'm so excited about our collab, but then I forgot to put her in the video. So I don't know what is going on with me. You know, they talk about the COVID brain and all that. And guys, I thought people were just full of baloney until I did get COVID. And it's just simple little things like that. Because not only I had been talking to her about doing the collab, but you have to, you know, put their information in there, talk about Tammy and her channel. So I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to leave everything in the description box below. Her channel is called The Rusted Willow. She has an amazing channel. You guys are going to love her. And please go check her out and let her know that Crummy Crafty Kathy sent you her way. So let's keep rolling now. I've got my Debbie's DIY white wax. And you know I've had this white wax for an eternity. And it's just now maybe a fourth of the way down. And guys, I have booths. I use this stuff on the daily. But it doesn't take that much. You just wipe a little bit of it all on. And then it's all preference. Some people leave it on for a whole hour before they take it off. I've heard of people leaving it on overnight before they take it off. I am impatient, so what I do is normally wipe it on, and then just a few seconds later, I wipe it off. And I lightly wipe it off. I don't wipe the majority of it off, and it's all personal preference. So that's how I do mine. And you do you, boo. I want to show you guys the way that the bee turned out. I was so happy with this bee because I didn't want any bright yellow. I knew that my DIY white wax was going to knock that yellow color, or, you know, soften it. Let's say, I always say knock it down, but you know what I'm saying. It softens it up. So I knew that it was going to soften it up, but when I put the white wax on it, it gave it the most perfect vintagey bee look that I could describe. It turned out so perfect. Look at this. And not only that, but it gave that crown the most beautiful color, and it was just perfection, like it always is. So when I got everything finished, I pulled out my handy dandy pencil box that Miss Rita, one of my subscribers, sent me, and it had different sizes of popsicle sticks in it. Thank you, Miss Rita. I love you. And I'm going to use some wood glue and I'm going to put it down in the pattern that I picked. I wanted small bees on one and large bees on the other. And as you can see, I did put down the wood glue, but I also put a very small dab of hot glue just to hold it for now. And then I opened up a little bit of the masking tape and very lightly just kind of put it over the top of that so it would hold overnight and stick in place. I realized after doing this a couple of times that hot glue, when it's out in the sun, it's just going to melt and it could make a mess on my project, and I do not want that at all. I don't want to lose this project. So what I did was started using my Star Bond glue, which I love Star Bond. It's kind of like a super glue almost. You could probably, I know you could use E6000 or, you know, even the Dollar Tree super glue I'm sure would work. And you can tell by the second one that I'm doing here, with that little area underneath that piece of wood where your lantern or your candles would go, I stuck some of the Walmart eucalyptus. I hope you like this as much as I do. Now, as you can tell, you can just set this out and use it with some candles as a lantern. It's really nice to have outside, I think. I'm going to be using mine hanging up under the canopy out by the pool, and I just think it's beautiful. I'm really proud of this one, and I took a lot of different angles and styled it a lot of different ways. I figured you guys would probably be like, goodness gracious, Kathy, like how many different ways are you going to show us that you've styled this thing? But I just really liked it and I thought it was pretty. Hey, if you have stuck with me through this whole video, I just want to thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up, and I'm going to be seeing you guys real soon. And I just want to thank you so very much for giving me your time. I really do appreciate every single one of y'all. And I love y'all from the bottom of my heart. Until next time, I'm sending you love and laughs and, of course, DIYs.
Nala, why are you laying in the tree? Well, she's probably up there waiting on a bird. Exactly.
She's looking for the bird.
Boy, she jumped right up. She's got her a little nesting spot up in there where she just, like a little hammock. That's a cat hammock. That's a cat hammock.
Here we go with number one. My first DIY is going to be this beautiful wall clock that I thrifted. I think it's so pretty. And when I first started on it, I wanted to really accentuate this beautiful detail that's around it. I think that is so lovely. I think I only paid like $1.99 for this thing. So I just grabbed it and I took all the pieces apart. A lot of times, if I find a beautiful clock that's round, I don't necessarily even use it for a clock. I thought that this one would make a beautiful wall decor, but I always keep all those pieces just in case I need it when I do happen to be putting a clock together. And honey, I'm telling you, this thing was a mess to try to get the front off of it. I don't know what was going on. It was some kind of hard plastic, and whenever I put the heat to it, it like started curling up on me. And I was going to save it until it did that. And I was like, yeah, you got to go, baby girl. So I just pulled it off. I used that heat to loosen up that glue on the back of it and popped her right off there. I have this gorgeous picture of these pretty little birds, and it's on rice paper. All I do is use rice paper and print the picture off on my regular printer, and I use the front of that little clock to know exactly how big I needed to cut this. And if I'm going to decopauge, which is what I'm going to do with this rice paper, I always rip my edges because you don't want any straight edges when you're decoupaging anything because it just looks more natural this way and it makes it so pretty. Then I took my little block of wax. You can use just a cheap old Dollar Tree candle. It does not matter. And you go around because this is a much easier way, I think, to distress. Whenever you put this wax on anything, whatever it hits, it's not going to hold the paint. So at the end, you just kind of scrape it off and you naturally have a beautiful way of distressing something. I pulled out my Debbie's DIY paint, and this green color is called Apothecary. It is one of my favorite colors. It is beautiful and breathtaking, and this paint is amazing. I gave it 2 full coats of the color Apothecary. I took the Waverly color called Ivory, and we're just going to hit the middle of this clock because a very little portion of my picture is going to show, and I want it to be the exact same color of the background of that little birdie picture that I'm going to decoupage on there. Now, if you like to decoupage and you haven't used rice paper, it's a game changer. Rice paper is so much easier to use than napkins because it's a little bit thicker and hardier, and it doesn't wrinkle and make all that mess that sometimes you get with napkins. Now, all I did was put down a little bit of Mod Podge and slap that picture right down. I always start from the center and kind of go out just to make sure I don't have any, bubbles or crinkles in my paper. Then I just took a razor knife and kind of cut around the edges to make sure that I had a good proper edge and that there wasn't anything sticking up or looking crazy. And I got some little fairy lights that I get off of Amazon. You get about, 15 packs in there, and there's 20 little lights on each string. And they're very inexpensive. They're in my Amazon store in case you want any of these. I think they're beautiful, and I love to use them in a lot of my different DIYs. Now, there was a little hole that's right there in the top that was perfect to slide that wire through there. And I just glued the little battery pack to the back of it, pulled it through, and I wound it around about 2 times so that it would go around my picture very nicely. And the good thing about these little fairy lights, if you need to put a little dot of glue to hold them, it's not going to fry that wire and mess up your whole lights. So I just put a couple of little dabs of glue, and that was plenty enough to hold it because it's a wire, so it doesn't need much to hold it. And after I put the little lights in, I still felt like it was needing something. So I grabbed some of this little Spanish moss. It just came from the Dollar Tree. And I put a little bit at the bottom to kind of make it look like a little birdie nest. And that kind of just gave it that little sweet touch that I thought that it was needing. If there's any that's sticking out and looks crazy, I just kind of trim them off with the little scissors there. Then I simply put a little dab of glue on the back and put my battery pack right there. That way you can flip it on and off with no problem. And I put my mirror back in, and let me tell y'all what I did. I started putting everything back together, and I had to use my screwdriver to put my little screws back in to hold the mirror. Well, Kathy cracked the mirror, and I was like, way to go, big girl. But I wasn't about to stop with this DIY because I thought it was beautiful. And you know what? A lot of people don't even like mirrors or, like glass or anything in their stuff. So I thought, hey, leave it out. It's still going to look good. And I just used a little wet baby wipe to go around and kind of distress. Now, it made that darker color underneath, which if you remember, it was black and kind of a coppery color. It made it pop right out and go, look at me. Here I am. I'm beautiful. Then I had to hit it with my Debbie's DIY white wax. If there's one product that I cannot live without, it's this product. And it seals in that paint, makes it kind of calm down the color a little bit, if you will. It kind of mutes it, and it gives it this beautiful cottage chic kind of vibe. It's just beautiful. And then I just wiped off the excess with the rag. Now, if you've been around my channel for a while, you know me, I can't stop once I get going on a DIY. So I thought, hey, what if I add one of these little solar wood flowers? I liked that ivory color because I felt that it was just muted enough to make everything perfect. And then I still wanted to add something. So I took some little pearls and I just put 3 on the 4 different corners. And don't you know, I didn't even record that part. I thought I did. But here's what it looked like when the pearls was on there. I hope you guys like this one. I absolutely am mad about it. When I'm showing you guys my DIYs and staging them, I always like to put a little old vintage picture. That's me when I graduated nursing school 20 years ago, and man, how time flies. And I'm so into anything vintage, so I love to stick little vintagey whatnots in my pictures whenever I'm taking it for you guys. I hope y'all enjoy this one. I don't know which way I like it better. It's beautiful with the lights on or with the lights off. But let's just jump right on in to DIY number 2. This one is an old pickle jar that I had upcycled a while back ago. I didn't really like it. So we're going to use some Dixie Belle Slick Stick. Now, this is the first time I've ever started using it. It is specifically for glass and things that are hard to paint, like glass, metal, that kind of thing. And it pretty much does what it says. It's a slick stick. Anything that's slick, it helps that paint stick. You know what I'm saying? And I put just 1 coat on this and on the top. And guys, the paint went on like a dream. So this slick stick is another one of my favorite products. Then I put a little bit of baking soda and I put a little bit of paint. And the paint that I'm using is home decor color called Oatmeal. I kind of do half and half. So if I do 1 teaspoon of the baking soda, I'm going to do 1 teaspoon of the paint. Now, it's just to thicken that paint up a little bit. It kind of makes the jar or whatever you're putting it on look a little like concrete-y, you know. And here's another little tip, guys, if y'all didn't know. Take Vaseline, just a little bit of Vaseline, and go around the tops of your paint jars whenever you're finished with them, because you ever have where paint gets all like cracky and flaky? You won't do it with that Vaseline. I'm just telling you, it's a good little move, and somebody taught it to me, and so I love to teach it to you guys and help y'all out. So I'm just going to stir this up real good. And when I get it good and stirred up, I want the consistency of like a thick pancake batter. It's not going to run off of my brush whenever I hold it up. Now, my first coat that I put on is just to get the paint on. It's nothing special. Basically, you just slap that first coat on there. But on my second coat, after that first coat is totally dried, I do another coat and I use this sponge dabber, I guess is what you call it. It's just a sponge, but I'm just pretty much dabbing that on there. And that kind of is what gives it that concrete-y look. You know, that look that we like on all of our jars. Or some of us do. I mean, it's just your personal preference, but I think it's really pretty. Plus, when the paint's a little bit thicker like that, you can't see any kind of lines or imperfections. So I let that second coat dry, and look at this beautiful piece of rice paper that my friend Teresa sent me. Now, Teresa sells napkins and rice paper and that kind of stuff, and I'm going to leave her link in the description down below because she has good prices and some beautiful stuff. Now, remember I told you that I like to rip the edges to make it look natural? The easiest way to do that is to wet them. So I wet the end of a little paintbrush, and then I use my fingers and very softly and carefully rip around the image that I'm needing for my decopauge. Now I'm going to take this pretty girl and I am going to put her on this jug. a jug. Man, you can tell I'm from Tennessee. It's a jar. So I put down a little bit of Mod Podge, and like I said, the rice paper, it works like a dream. It's so easy. I just do a little bit up top and then stuck her down, and then I put a little bit at the bottom. And you always want to make sure to get those edges sealed really well with that Mod Podge. That way it won't never come up. And I still do use saran wrap if I get wrinkles, but you very seldom get many wrinkles when you use the rice paper. Now up at the top of this jar, since it was curved the way it was, I cut 3 just straight cuts in it, and it makes it a little bit easier to lay it down. And I did use my saran wrap up there too, because some areas are a little bit more tricky, you know, but you don't want no wrinkles. And then over here at the side, I just stuck another little rose kind of off to the side so it would look like the picture's going all the way around the jug. The jug. And on the front, I had 2 small little butterflies that was on this picture, and I just stuck those in front of her. Now, I gave the lid 2 coats of Ballet Slipper is the color. It's that pretty muted pink color by Waverly. And I did put that slick stick on that top of that jar too, just because, you know, it's a slick surface and it don't usually hold paint so well. Then I had to grab my Debbie's DIY white wax, y'all. I've had this jar forever. And guys, I do so many DIYs and I'm not even halfway through this jar. I'm not kidding you. It is a little bit more expensive. I want to say it's about 15 bucks for the jar, but it lasts you forever. So you just rub it on and you rub it back off to whatever preference, how much you want on there. And it just mutes down that color a little bit and gives it a little vintagey vibe. I wrapped some jute twine around the top of it, and I had to get all the little fuzzies off, so I used a lighter to do that, and it just burns them off perfectly. And then the last thing I done was I took some of this ribbon, I guess you would call it ribbon. I got it at the Dollar Tree, and it's almost like, I really don't even know what you would call this stuff, but I mean, you can see it. I really don't even know what you would call it, but I just kind of cut it up because I felt like the jar needed something else. And so I just ended up like fooling with it for a little while, and I finally settled on kind of tying it in a very loose, tacky kind of, you know, like a shabby chic type bow. I found this little flower petal with the pearl in the middle somewhere. I don't know where it came from. And so I like to add a little 3D effect to my stuff. So I stuck it kind of on the side where it looks like it's in her hair with the rest of the flowers. And then I did use a very light sandpaper to go over it and kind of scratch it up and give it that vintagey look. I hope you like it.
Yesterday I lost the battle, trying at all costs, oh, to keep you, baby. Oh, to keep you, baby. Now I hurt so bad.
If you're new here, or if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, what in the world are you waiting for? I would love to have you as part of my family. All you got to do is hit that little red subscribe button and you're in. It's totally free. And if you hit that little bell beside it, YouTube's going to let you know when I put out a video. And if you enjoy the content, give me a big thumbs up because it really helps support my channel. Now let's get into the next one. This is a little planter that I got, little watering can that I got from my thrift store for $1. Now it's that metal that's kind of hard to paint, so I gave it that slick stick also. And then I just painted it with the exact same mixture of the baking soda and the oatmeal colored paint that I had mixed up before. I had it sitting around, so I figured I might as well. And I only gave it 2 coats of this, and I did the exact same thing. I daubed it on. Now on this one, since it was a little bit harder to paint, I didn't just swipe on that first coat of paint like I did with the jar. I started right away with that daubing motion, and I did that 2 times. And now I'm going to use some IOD transfers. Now these are called Redoubt 2.
And my friend Lori over at Milton's Daughter sent me this, and I thank you so much, Lori. This is beautiful. And guys, the thing about the IOD transfers is you don't have to use that whole page. You can use little bits and pieces of it or just the words, and it makes any project beautiful. Now, I'm going to leave Lori's link down in the description box below. Her store is called Milton's Daughter. That's where I get anything IOD from. And she's awesome. She's quick to get it to you, and you will not be disappointed. And let me tell you what else. She gives my subscribers 10% off your IOD products. So y'all make sure that you go see Miss Lori down at Milton's Daughter and let her know that Crafty Kathy sent you her way. So I finally found the one that I wanted. All I needed was a little piece, and these are so easy to use. All you do is just lay it on whatever surface you're going to put it on, and then they send you a little tool, and you just have to scratch it with that little tool, and it comes right off, almost like a sticker, except for it's so beautiful, guys. Like I'm telling you, it will make any DIY just pop. And a lot of times, to be honest, I do use that tool, but I kind of prefer my fingernail a lot of times. It's just easier to get it off. And then when you get the image off, you burnish it. And burnish just means where you take that little clear film that it comes on and rub it on the top of it to get it to make sure it's sticking real good. Now, I picked this word, and it's from a different part of the book. Like I said, you can use bits and pieces, and I just put this down on the bottom. It's a French word, so don't ask me what it is, because us Tennessee guys, we don't speak French. Unless you're talking about French fries now. That's another story. But anyways, I put another little rose on the back, and it's from a totally different part of the book. And from another book called Brocante, I had this beautiful little butterfly, and I thought it went perfect with this watering can, so I put it on kind of on the side there. I added another little rose to the side, and then going up the spout, I put like another little phrase that went right along with the other French words that I put on there. Then I used my Waverly ink, which is their black colored chalk paint, and I went all the way around the rims of this little watering can to kind of give it like an enamel look. But I used my finger. It's my favorite form of distressing. You know, we always joke about that. Instead of a paintbrush, a lot of times I use my finger because it just distresses everything perfectly. So I went around all the edges with my finger, and I think that turned out so pretty. And that's all I did to this one because it didn't need anything else. And I hope you like this one. I think it's just cute as can be.
What's it like to be the one that he turns to when he's out of answers? What's it like to be the one that he comes to when he wants to dance?
And I found out that the IOD sisters just released their new summer stuff. And I am crazy about everything that they have. This is one of the new transfers that they have, and you will never be disappointed with anything that you buy from them because the quality is outstanding, and I love this stamp. I've got to have it. So make sure that y'all go and see Lori over at Milton's Daughter for all your IOD products because she has them, and you get that 10% discount. Now I've got one more quick little DIY, and it's the last of the day. I got this little basket from the thrift store, and I decided to paint it. So I taped off the bottom third part of it, and the upper part, I painted it with the color called Ivory Bisque, which is just an ivory color. And then the bottom, it was called Coastal Sage. And y'all know I've got that little Etsy store called Kathy's Crafty Boutique where I have all that sublimation prints that are in there. And I decided to do a little sublimation. It's been a while since we've been doing our sublimation, and y'all know how I love it. So I printed these two beautiful roses out on this sublimated paper, and all I'm going to do is just cut it out here.
I'm actually going to put it on this runner that came from the Dollar Tree because it's 100% polyester, and to do sublimation you get a better result if you use at least 70% polyester. So all I have to do is lay my print down and put my wax paper down over top of it, and then my Cricut hot press for 60 seconds on 385. Now don't forget, come visit my shop if you guys need anything that's sublimated. I have beautiful prints, and like I said, it's been a while since we've talked about the sublimation, but I absolutely love the way it always turns out. And look at this, voila! So I just cut my little print out, and I'm going to put it right in the middle of my basket. All I do is use a little small dab of hot glue on the corners to hold it down. And I think this turned out beautiful, guys. After I got it glued down, I did use a little bit of the Debbie's DIY white wax, mostly on that darker part on the bottom, that coastal sage. It's kind of an apothecary color. It almost came out looking like that apothecary. That's absolutely all I had to do to this, and I love the way that it turned out. This will sell very fast because the baskets are always a fast seller, and you can always find a ton of them at the thrift store.
Give me love, give me all your love, oh, 'cause I want you. No one else makes me feel.
If y'all stuck through this whole video, I just want to say thank you, and I love each and every one of y'all, and I am so thankful for all the support and love that y'all show me. A lot of times when my own family's not like family, y'all are that to me, and I am so thankful that I do have a family with y'all that I can come to and share my life with, and I just love y'all from the bottom of my heart. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and go check out my Etsy store, and go check out Miss Lori over at Milton's Daughter if you need any IOD products, because she will give you that 10% off. And you got to stick around because you know there's either going to be bloopers or some of my critters. Abby, you want to sing intro? You want to sing the intro song? You want to do intro? Shay, you being lazy? Shabby.
You.
Up my own decor in my home to go more with a cottage style theme. It's a sweet, soft, feminine decor style, and there's a lot of beautiful earthy tones, cozy goodness, and a lot of flowers. So let's jump on in. The other day when I was strolling through the thrift store, I found this magnetic board, and I really like the design on the outside, but the colors are totally not my style and they don't go with my home. So we're going to give it a little upcycle, and the first thing that I'm going to do is use my home decor white Adirondack, and I gave it 2 coats on the outside. The middle part that has the chevron pattern had a great big T on it that somebody had made with a Cricut machine. So I pulled that off and had to use a very fine sandpaper to get off that T as good as I could. And then I had to go over that part 3 times just to cover that up. I went to my printer and I printed off this gorgeous picture onto a piece of rice paper. Now, rice paper can be used just like I do my napkins in decoupaging.
You can use it to decoupage it onto anything, and it doesn't have the wrinkles and the bother that you have with napkins. So actually, it's a lot easier to decoupage. So I wet the end of my little paintbrush like I always do, and I run it down the corners. And what I'm going to do is just rip that, because anytime that you're decoupaging something, you don't want straight edges. You want it to be ripped because it just looks more natural that way. Then I just laid my picture down exactly where I wanted it on my little magnetic board. And then I go and put a little bit of Mod Podge on the top. Actually, I put a pretty good coat. I don't want it like sopping wet and goopy, but you do want it to be a little bit thicker because rice paper is heavier than your napkins. Then I just smoothed it out with my little brayer to make sure that we didn't have any wrinkles. I have this little pad of distressing oxide, and it's kind of like our antique wax. I just picked a lighter color. The color that I have is called Weathered Twigs. It's a very light brown, and I just went around the whole thing and distressed it where I wanted to. I pulled out some of my IOD transfer books, and these come from different ones. I just wanted to put some wording on this because my picture had some French writing on it, and a lot of the IOD transfers have French writing on them, and they're so easy to add to any of your decor to make it beautiful. All you do is just pull it away from the white backing, and then you lay it down where you want to, and you use that little tool that they send to you, or you can use a credit card. You can even use your fingernail and just scratch until it comes off onto your decor. Then when the transfer is adhered, you use that piece of plastic that it was on and kind of rub it over the top of it in a circular motion. I can't talk today. And that's called burnishing it. And then I had some 320 sandpaper, and so it's a very light grit. And I just went over it very smoothly because to me, it makes the transfers look a little vintagey too. And you know that's right up my alley. I took some Waverly mineral chalk paint and I painted this cute little crown that I had made from a mold with resin last week. And after it had dried, I took some of my Debbie's DIY white wax, and I'm just going to go over that cute little crown with my distressing brush, and then I wait a few seconds and then I wipe some of it back off. Then I just use my Star Bond glue to put it down on my board. And I am so excited to get to use my brand new mold. This is the IOD mold. I don't remember the name of it, but it's the one with the birds on it. And I'm going to use my DAS clay, and I'm just going to make some simple molds, and we're going to put these on that magnetic board. Now, the IOD molds are very, very easy to work with. They have like a little lip on the end of them where you can just push your finger and get a perfect mold every time. Then after I get them all finished, I go and pop them in the freezer for at least 15 minutes so that they can kind of harden up, and it makes them so easy to come out. Now look how easy they come out of this. You just have to barely push up on the back of the mold and they just pop right out, and they're beautiful and perfect, and they have the most gorgeous detail that you've ever seen. Now I know that these molds are a little bit more expensive, but I'm just telling you guys, they are amazing. You can use them over and over so you can really get your use out of them, and especially if you sell your crafts, they're really worth having. I'm going to leave a link in the description box. If you go to the store named Milton's Daughter and use Crafty Kathy 10, you get 10% off all your IOD products. I'm going to paint my birds my favorite color, which is Apothecary by DIY. And I just love this paint. It's clay-based and it goes on so easy, and it's just smooth as a baby's bottom. I ordered these napkins from my friend Teresa,
And I think that these are gorgeous. It's one of my favorite napkins I've ever seen. And I do the same thing as before, where I wet my brush and I just go around the patterns of where I want to tear the napkin at. I wet it and then I just tear off the piece that I want. Now it's time to put everything on my magnetic board. I'm going to use Type Bond because I really like the way that it goes on. It's very easy to work with. And I've already got my beautiful birds laid down where I want them to go. And so I just put a little bit of Type Bond on the back and place them where they go. I also put this cute little honeybee on there that I had made last week with the resin. Now I'm going to add my little pieces of napkin. So most napkins have 2 or 3 plies. These had 3 plies. So I just put a dab of Mod Podge on my pointer finger and my thumb and kind of rub it. And then I use that to separate the pieces. And so when I get down to just 1 ply, I just lay it down. First, I put my Mod Podge down, and then I lay it down, and I use my saran wrap over the top of it to make sure there's no wrinkles.
What's it like to be the one that he turns to when he's out of answers? What's it like to be the one that he comes to?
Then I grab my Debbie's DIY white wax, and I rub it over each of the clay pieces, and then I just wipe off the excess. And it's so beautiful because that white wax gets down in all the crevices and you can see every little detail on those birds. Every little feather, everything is so exaggerated and it's so beautiful. And that's all I did. I hope you like it.
Don't know what to do or what I should say, 'cause I got him on my mind, but he doesn't know my name. What's it like to hold his hand when he tells you that you're all he wants? And it's midnight, oh, I'm thinking about him. I have got him on my mind, but he doesn't know my name. And I'm running out of time. I wish he felt the same, and I'm acting stupid like every day.
Hey guys, here's a good spot for me to remind you to hit that little red subscribe button. It's all you have to do to join our family, and we would love to have you. This is a little basket that I found at the thrift store about a year ago. As you can see, it's a duck, and I use it in my kitchen to put my chickens' eggs in. So I took it outside and I gave it 2 coats of a spray shellac so that brownish red color wouldn't come through. And with 2 coats of the Rust-Oleum 2 times Ultra Matte White, she's got a beautiful new look. And see, sometimes it doesn't take much. And it's the same with this beautiful bird. I've had her for quite a while. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with her or when I was going to get around to her. But I've really gotten into birds lately and the whole cottage decor theme. And she's perfect. So as you see, she's already got some brown on her. I decided what I'm going to do is kind of make her look like a concrete bird in a way. So what I did was I took the Truffle, which is by Waverly, and I'm just going to paint over the parts where I would distress at because that brown would be coming through. And I pretty much kind of distressed over the parts that are already colored brown, like the little part on her tail, the little feathers on her wings. I did go around where her beak would be, and then around the bottom part. Then I mixed up some of the mineral chalk paint with some baking soda. Now I never measure mine, but I do kind of half and half. So in other words, if I put 1 teaspoon of paint, I'm going to put 1 teaspoon of baking soda. It all depends on how thick I wanted it. So as you can see, I pretty much did half and half. You just stir it up really good. And for my first coat, I'm just going to get the color on there, and that's all I'm looking for with my very first coat. I ended up giving her a total of 3 coats in all. And I always make sure on the second and third coat to kind of pounce it on with my brush. What I mean by pounce it on is put a lot of paint on the end of my brush and literally just pounce it. Because if you notice, that's what gives it a good texture and a concrete looking finish. It just gives it that look, and the mineral color is perfect to make anything look like concrete. I also had 2 little gnomes from the Dollar Tree, and they've been sitting on my desk forever. And while I was doing that concrete technique on my birdie boo, I decided to do that on my little gnomes, and I could stick them in my flower pots. So what I did with them is go all over them with a good coat of the truffle, and when it dried, I used that same treatment, which is the mineral chalk paint mixed in with the baking soda, and I pounced them about 2 to 3 times really good. And when I finished painting them, my little birdie boo was dry, so I took some of my Debbie's DIY white wax and I stuck it to her. I put it all over her pretty thick like, and then I just very lightly wiped it off with my little rag. And I like to use microfiber cloths. That's what they tell you to use. And it just seems like it's a little bit softer and it's easier. And also, when I put the mineral chalk paint on my little gnomes, I did not use the Debbie's DIY wax on them because I wanted them to have that grayish finish whenever they were done. And I hope you guys like these. Super easy. My last DIY is my favorite. It's this makeup table. It's wicker, and I got a mirror that goes with it. Now, I got this at that antique flea market that I stopped at a couple of weeks ago, and I think I only paid about $40 or maybe a little bit less than that. But I really like it, and I wanted to upcycle it. So I took it outside and I gave it a total of 3 coats of the Rust-Oleum ×2 Ultra Matte White. I just think that white wicker is so pretty, and it was already white, but it was a little grungy white, if you know what I mean. You couldn't really tell the difference, but I could if I saw it. And I always tape my mirror off really good whenever I spray it, and of course I sprayed it too. I wanted to show you the difference because you may say, why did she even spray it? It looked fine before, but I wanted to show you. The left side has been sprayed and the right side is not. Now in the light, you could tell the difference. So it was really hard for me to tape this while I was doing this project because it was so big and had so many pieces to it, and my camera kept falling. But I did my napkins first, and I had them strategically laid out the way that I wanted to use them. And I just used my Mod Podge. You put a good amount of Mod Podge on the wicker where you want it. And then you make sure you pull apart your 3 different plies off of your napkins. I also used a brush that was damp. And like I said, I put down my Mod Podge, and you just lay down your napkin, and then you use your saran wrap and lay it on top of your napkin, and you pull that saran wrap together tightly. And that way, the napkin just kind of sinks into that wicker. And then you always have to be careful when you're taking your saran wrap off of your napkin because it can stick too, and you'll pull it right back off. So once again, I'm doing that with the little butterfly here. I take all the backing off of it. I put down my Mod Podge and lay it down. And then I use my saran wrap and pull that saran wrap taut, you know, so that it just kind of sinks into the wicker. Now, it's very important to use the saran wrap or else it's going to stick to your fingers and everything else. And so when I use my saran wrap, I just pull it from 2 different directions. I hope that you can understand what I'm doing here. It's really hard to explain some things. It's so much easier just to watch me, I think, sometimes, because the words don't make sense. I don't know if that even, you know what I'm saying? It's like I can't get to articulate what I'm trying to say. But you just pull your saran wrap from 2 different directions tautly and it will stick on there really well. And the molds are super easy. You just put the Titebond on the back of them wherever you want them to go, and you spread it really well, and then you just lay it down where you want it to go. And what I did was took just a simple piece of masking tape and very loosely put that masking tape over the top of it so that it would hold that mold down overnight, and then the next thing in the morning it's really well and stuck on there. And I did the exact same thing to the bottom of this makeup table, which it was really tough for me to be able to record that part, so I didn't. I just did the exact same thing there as I did to the top. And of course, I had to use my Debbie's DIY white wax on my molds. So all I did was the same thing like before, just brushed it on and very lightly brushed it off. I covered up the mirror so it wouldn't be right in your glare, and it's really hard to film a good picture or take a good picture of a mirror, but I hope that you guys really like this one. It was my favorite of all of these DIYs, and I absolutely love it. I'm always proud when I do any kind of furniture. Also, when I finished, I felt like something was missing, so I took the color Apothecary, which is that green color, and went around the rim of the mirror here. And I think that was the exact perfect thing that it needed. It's still very minimal, but very beautiful. And I love this new cottage decor. If you guys have stuck through to the end of this video, I thank you so much for being here. I appreciate every single one of y'all, and I pray that God blesses you in the coming week. I hope everybody has a beautiful and blessed Mother's Day. I love all you guys, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I will be seeing y'all very soon. And I have Sabby singing for you today. Everybody's been saying that they miss him, so I thought that he would do a little popping in since he is our executive producer.
Had this conversation more than 10 times. After 9, I still wished you were mine. Haven't ate in 7 days, 'cause I've been up till 6 a.m.
Say hello, everybody. Say hi, I'm back. Say hi, everybody. I had a rough night. My bow tie has slipped off to the side. Say hi, everybody. Not to me, to them. They're watching you. They love you. Woo, they don't know what your breath smells like, though, but they love you. Are you ready to sing our theme song? We haven't sung it in a long time. Do you think you can? Well, here on our channel, we got love and laughs and DIYs. We got love and laughs and DIYs. We got some love and laughs and DIYs. We got love and laughs and DIYs. Yeah. Woo-hoo, baby. Oh, yeah. He did it, guys. I don't know which side to look at. Anyways, we love y'all. We'll see you soon.